Losing weight and losing it quickly. It's something a lot of us have thought about, right? But for years, we've been told it's just a recipe for disaster. Well, what if the conventional wisdom is kind of wrong? Today, we are going to cut through all that noise and get into the surprising science behind rapid fat loss and what it really takes to pull it off.
All right, let's dive right in with a dilemma I'm pretty sure many of us have faced at some point.
Okay, picture this. You've got a wedding, a big vacation, maybe a reunion coming up in just a few weeks, and a little voice in your head starts whispering, go all in. Slash calories, live at the gym, just try to make a huge change, like right now. But is that actually a good idea? Or are you just setting yourself up to fail?
Well, to get a real answer, we've got to look at the actual research. And what it suggests, well, it pretty much flies in the face of the advice we've all been hearing for decades. I mean, we've all heard this a million times, right? Slow and steady wins the race. It's the classic advice. The whole idea is that making small, gradual changes is way easier to stick with, and that's what leads to results that actually last. And for a long, long time, that was basically the unquestioned gold standard of dieting.
But here's the twist, and it's a big one. There's some really compelling research out there now that suggests a faster start, a really aggressive initial weight loss, can actually lead to better long-term success, especially for people who are starting out with a lot of weight to lose. I know, it sounds completely backwards, but there's a super powerful psychological reason for this.
And look, this isn't just some fringe theory from the corner of the internet. As Dr. Layne Norton points out, the data actually backs this up. Think about it. When you see big, significant results, and you see them quickly, it just pours fuel on your motivational fire in a way that slow, barely there progress, well, it just doesn't.
So this all comes down to a really important psychological idea called buy-in, right? Let's be real. Dieting is hard. It's a ton of work. And if you put in all that effort for 2 weeks and the scale barely even budges, it's so easy to just throw your hands up and say, why am I even bothering? But if you see real, tangible results right out of the gate, you become psychologically invested. You've proved to yourself that this thing works, and that makes you want to double down and keep going.
Okay, so if rapid loss can be so motivating, you're probably asking, what's the catch? And yeah, there's a catch. It's not some magic bullet. To really get it, we need to dive into the science of trade-offs.
And this quote from Thomas Sowell just perfectly frames this whole discussion. In health and fitness, just like in, economics or anything else in life, every single choice has benefits and it has costs. There are no perfect solutions. The key is just understanding those trade-offs so you can make a smart decision for yourself.
So here is the single most crucial trade-off, the risk of losing muscle. But here's the thing, that risk is not the same for everybody. It really depends on where you're starting from. See, if you have a high body fat percentage, your body has this huge energy reserve, your body fat, to pull from, so it has very little reason to start breaking down precious muscle. But if you're already pretty lean, going on an aggressive diet is way riskier. Your body is much more likely to start sacrificing muscle. And to fight against this, no matter where you start, getting enough protein and doing resistance training become absolutely essential. They're like signals you send to your body saying, hey, keep the muscle.
And that brings us to a really key detail that most people totally miss. When you get a body scan and it says you've lost lean mass, your brain immediately goes to, oh no, I'm losing muscle. But it's not that simple. Adipose tissue, body fat, isn't just 100% pure fat. It's actually a complex tissue. It's got structure, little protein, water, and all of that stuff registers as lean mass on a scan. In fact, for the average person, it's perfectly normal for about 25 to 30% of the total weight you lose to come from this lean mass. That number accounts for water you've lost, the actual structural parts of the fat tissue itself breaking down, and even a little bit of shrinking of your internal organs. So it does not mean you're just melting away all your hard-earned skeletal muscle.
But look, the physical trade-offs, that's only half the battle. The other half, and you could argue it's the bigger half, is fought entirely inside your own head.
This is honestly one of the most fascinating things to me. Studies have shown that your perception of food directly changes how your body physically responds to it. So if you look at your meal and think, this is nourishing fuel, this is good for me, you will literally feel more full and more satisfied. But if you frame that exact same meal as, this is my miserable restrictive diet, you'll feel deprived, you'll feel less full, and you'll start craving other stuff. Even if the calories are exactly the same, it's all about the story you tell yourself.
And it doesn't even stop there. Our feeling of fullness is surprisingly easy to trick. Just eating more slowly gives your brain time to catch up and register that you're full. Using a smaller plate can make the same portion of food seem way bigger. Get this, Even the color contrast between your food and your plate can change how much you eat. It just goes to show you how much our environment, not just our raw willpower, is running the show.
So when you combine all this science with the psychology we've been talking about, you land on this one really powerful philosophy for making any kind of difficult change in your life.
It's so profound, and it applies to everything, not just dieting. Your money, your career, your relationships. The idea is simple. Choosing the hard path right now, the path of discipline and effort, is really just an investment in a future where your life gets fundamentally easier.
And honestly, there is no better real-world example of this exact principle in action than the story of the actor Ethan Suplee.
At his absolute heaviest, Ethan weighed over 500 pounds. I mean, the challenge in front of him was just immense. But it's not just that he did it, it's how he thought about it, his reframing of the challenge, that is so incredibly powerful.
See, he had this breakthrough where he realized he wasn't choosing between an easy life and a hard life. He was choosing between two different kinds of hard. The path that seemed easy, just maintaining that lifestyle, was actually unbelievably difficult. It took a massive amount of effort every single day just to function. The other path, the one that seemed hard, going to the gym, restricting calories, was a different kind of hard for sure, but it was a hard path that was actually leading somewhere better.
And that's the punchline, right there. He discovered that all the work he had to do just to live his life at that size, the planning, the constant discomfort, all the limitations, that was infinitely harder than the disciplined work of just going to the gym and managing his food. His story is the perfect example of how that initial buy-in, probably fueled by seeing some big results early on, can be the spark for a totally life-changing journey.
And so that leaves us with one final question to really chew on. And this goes way beyond weight loss. What is one short-term hard choice that you could make starting today that would pay off and make your future easier for the rest of your life?